This story continues from Day 4, Sanctuary. Day 5, Whisper. "Edward," whispered a voice. He jolted awake and could see nothing. He blinked and blinked until he realized he was looking up at a very high, very dark, beamed ceiling. He took a deep breath and took in the sanctuary. The gas lamps had lowered to almost nothing, but everything was otherwise unchanged since he had drifted off. Of course, he had no sense of what time it was, and cursed himself when he looked at his watch. Midnight. Or midday. It really could have been either. But surely midnight, he couldn't have slept that long. Only then did he notice that the second hand wasn't moving. All three were pointing straight up at 12. "Edward," said the voice again. He jumped from the chaise longue like a dog that was kicked. His instincts put his back to the door and the steps leading back out to the street. He strained his eyes as they scanned the room. The voice had sounded very close. "Hello?" he asked, a little higher than he had expected. "Who's there?" "I'm through here, darling." It was his wife's voice, coming from behind the curtain. Relief washed over Edward and he let out a sigh. But his nerves tightened again almost immediately. His wife? Here? He lifted one of the curtains a little and stepped through into the back room. It was cooler, even cold by comparison. His wife was sitting in the love seat, her hands in her lap atop her peach-pleated skirt. She was wearing the layered chiffon blouse and pearls he had left her in that morning, with her hair still pinned up in the sensible way she chose when she went out to run her errands. She was smiling, he thought, but she was studying him. She never looked at him this intently, as though she were trying to find a way to say goodbye. "May I sit?" he asked, and her smile widened, her eyes dropped. He felt embarrassed, like a schoolchild, and tried to counter it by sitting down a little too hard. Neither of these Edwards seemed like him. "I know what you want to ask, but allow me to ask you something first, and I believe you'll agree that it won't matter much anymore." He thought he might be sick. "Do you remember how we met?" "Of course," he said. "We've always known each other. Our mothers were lying in beds next to one another on the maternity ward." Edward didn't really believe in fate, but that was a hard one to ignore. "But do you remember?" she pressed. His brow furrowed, his mouth hung open a little. "Well, no, I suppose I don't." "I do," she said, almost a little too quickly. "I remember." Now it was Edward's turn to smile. "Really?" "I was first. Soon enough before you that the curtain was pulled back and I could see your mother, puffing, but smiling at me and my mother. Yours seemed happier to see me than my own, and even though you were causing her discomfort, she was still full of questions about me and how the labour went." Her eyes had drifted over Edward's shoulder as she recalled. She smiled again. "She really had your eyes. Or you have hers, I suppose. That could have been you on that gurney, panting and sweating, smiling." "You don't really remember all that, though, do you?" asked Edward, but she seemed not to hear him. "Being born is quite awful, you know. I didn't need to breathe, but as my shoulders were being crushed, I wanted nothing more in the whole universe. The world was so bright and cold, just awful." She looked quite disgusted. "But after a while they wheeled your mother away, and then back. I could hear you whimpering behind the curtain, and I couldn't wait to meet you. I had been waiting a long time." Edward wanted to know what had happened to his wife. "It's late, darling. I think we should get you home," he said. A very long time, she continued. Do you remember what happened that July day when we were 8? Edward closed his eyes. Now is not the time, he said. No, now is the time. 21 years ago to the day, to be exact. She was right. From the day we were born, my mother drank. Every day. I've never told you that, but I remember it. I remember it all. Every single day. My father didn't put up with it for too long. I imagine you don't remember him either, she asked. Edward shook his head. She didn't notice him leave. She took to bed often. I fed myself, or your mother did. Until one day, that day, Liz. Her eyes locked onto his as he interrupted her. They were the angriest he had ever seen them. Angrier than any eyes he had ever seen. He paled and did not go on. That day, 21 years ago, when we found her, together. You said she was asleep, darling Edward. You tried to wake her, shake her. Do you remember what I did? Through tears, Edward reluctantly brought back that image, decades old. His small hands pressing into the floral lump on the bed, rocking it back and forth, the sickly sunlight heating the back of the curtains, and, try as he might, he couldn't stop the film playing on. As the lump in the bed began to move, as a rasping voice asked quietly for help, Elizabeth, his 8-year-old bride-to-be, pulled the young boy back. With clarity, he remembered how strong she was, so strong, pulling him back from the bed, those small hands of his reaching out to the poor wretch, but Elizabeth taking him back to the door, slamming it closed, and, with it, the memory. Edward's face was wet. We should have done something. We did. She was consoling him. She didn't want to live. I know, because I remember her life too, and her mothers before her and before her. Edward's breathing was short, and a shadow had fallen across his wife's face. Except it wasn't his wife.